everyone, welcome to a new episode of In Other Words with Danielle and Zara.
So this is a podcast where we talk about a wide variety of different subjects, from who knows me better to lies we tell ourselves. So in other words, we talk about all the things.
How exciting is
Danielle,
that?
the most
Yes,
exciting.
I also
Tell
think
us
so.
about your life.
My life, okay. So my internship is coming to an end. I think when this episode comes out, it'll be like within my last 2 days of my internship, which is crazy. I can't
That
believe
is
how
crazy.
Yeah, I can't believe how fast the time has gone, but it has been like a really cool year.
Yes, you've been so
And
fancy and
indeed,
important.
so important. My thesis is a bit slow, but this
We
weekend
keep
I'm
on
gonna,
going.
yeah, it's going. It is going. That is for sure.
That's
But
all that matters.
yeah, I had like these expectations in my head that I would work very fast, and I haven't, and that's annoying me. Yeah, but that's okay. We'll get through it.
You will.
What else have I been doing? Nothing much really. Those are my life updates. Tell me about yourself,
Cute.
Zara.
Nothing much to update. Work has been busy. The end of the year is crazy for everyone, but especially if you work for a church. And I have summer camp coming up with my teenagers. So we are well on our way to raising all the money because summer camp is so far away and we have to pay for that.
It's in Kimberley, hey?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, pray that the Lord brings in so much funds. Thank you. In Jesus' name. Otherwise, I've been fine. I'm going to be in Cape Town in 11 days' time because I'm coming down for my cousin's wedding.
Can't
And
wait.
it is also Danielle's birthday in 11 days' time. But when you listen to this, she will already be 23. Yes.
Well,
So,
in 2 days' time, I think. I think this will come out the Monday before my birthday.
I don't know
I think.
maths. Shh. Okay.
Sorry.
Can't ask me such complicated questions.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Danielle. So first I can promote our local brand or I can ask you my question. Which would you prefer?
I think you can promote the brand and then ask me the question.
Okay, so the brand I'm promoting is actually not a brand. It is a book. So it is the book that we gave away a copy of for our 2-year giveaway. It is Unshackled by Basil Sparks. And yes, I am biased because I know Basil, but I think it just reaffirmed just how wonderful Basil is because he writes with such, like, he uses such personal touches, but yet
Yeah.
it is still so accessible for everyone, like young and old, like regardless of your race. And it's set in like an African context. So you definitely, I mean, it uses African proverbs and Basil grew up on the farm. So you really get that. But then you also get the very westernized kind of context in which we now live. And
Yeah.
it's essentially about him talking about all of the things, the lies that he's believed about himself and about life that through the years God has revealed and kind of helped him like escape and get out of. And yeah,
So cool, yeah.
it's been like really helpful and things have been coming up lately. Like I think in ministry, the one thing that I've just been reminded of lately is that people are people, not projects. Because even though I
Yeah,
love people,
so
in
true.
ministry, I'm like, I want to get you to this place with the Lord. And it's like, first of all, that's not my job. Second of all, they're a person, just like I'm a person.
Yeah.
So it's really like very good. So if you want a copy, contact us, contact Basil, go on Amazon, do the things.
Do the things.
And then my question.
Oh, no.
Okay. So this is your opinion on something that has been all over social media and the news
okay.
the last 2 days. And I think it's hilarious, but you let me know.
Okay.
Charlize Theron
Oh, my word, yeah.
and her
I was
speaking
actually
about
thinking
her
about that before we started
44,
recording. Oh,
her
sorry.
44 people speaking Afrikaans being a dead language. People are
It is
offended, dude.
so funny. It is so funny. I mean, okay. Someone has to be very brave, especially as an ex-South African,
Yes.
to speak about South Africa, because all I can say
Yes.
is that South Africans are brutal, especially if you're not living in the country anymore. I feel the same way. I feel very protective over like my country and things, especially when it's
Yes.
like someone who
People
used to
who,
live here. Because I'm like, you don't have a
yes.
right. You moved away. You don't have a right anymore. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Um, so I think she's very brave for saying something like that. I think it is funny, and I think a lot of people hold a similar sentiment about Afrikaans. But like, it is also, I think, the second most spoken language in South Africa. So I'm like, just because it's not spoken internationally doesn't mean that it's dying, because it's certainly still like, it's still going in South Africa. And
Yes.
another thing, like I was saying to my mom, and I was also speaking about with Devin the other day, not related to like Charlize Theron, or Theron as she says.
Tron. But she's not Afrikaans, so
No.
don't you dare.
So a lot of people forget, like when people think about Afrikaans, they often think about like white people who speak Afrikaans, but they forget
Yes.
about the whole colored population, for like a lot of whom
Yes.
speak Afrikaans as a home
Afrikaans.
language. So I'm
Yeah.
like, it's not just one group of people, but I
Yeah.
do think it's funny. I think the reactions are absolutely hilarious, and yeah,
They
she's
are
very brave to
funny.
speak about that.
She
What do
is.
you think?
So I agree with everything you're saying. I think again it is a language that's spoken in like one country and one country alone, which is probably the
Yeah.
sentiment that she was maybe getting across. For me, it's funny because of the way that she said it. She wasn't like attacking Afrikaans per se. It comes across that way, but she was
Yeah.
making like a joke.
A joke,
Like, I
yeah.
think if we were like famous to her degree, we would have been cancelled long ago because of all the nonsense we say. But it is hilarious to me. People are like, Charlize, and like, how
I
dare you?
know.
And I'm one of the 44, which is just playing into the joke.
Oh, so funny. Like,
But
I
yeah,
want to
I
start a
think
group chat with the 44 people who speak Afrikaans.
speak Afrikaans. Yeah, and I mean, look, it is for the long time was seen as the language of the oppressor in this country. But that's just like something that comes with it that isn't necessarily accurate, like you said, like the colored, like Christianity is the white man's religion, but it's really not. So, yeah, I just thought it was funnier rather than like anything else, and it is just funny to me how angry people are. Like I'm like, ugh, Charlize, you rather shut up for a call.
Yeah, just like don't speak about it anymore. Like, you actually don't. Like, I think this is the general sentiment, is that people are like, you actually don't have the right
Right.
anymore. Like, you've
Yes.
lost that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Anyways,
anyway. So,
let's
the
get
topic
on
of
to
today.
today's topic.
Do you want to introduce us to what we're talking about?
Yes. So we
Okay.
are going to be speaking about, I think, a topic that you and I are both passionate about because it has been something we've spoken about for a few years now since we've entered quote unquote adulthood.
Yeah.
Is the idea of having kids, because I think for
Yes.
generations it was just the done thing. You get married, you have children. That is the
Exactly.
trajectory of your life, especially as a woman. And I'm terrified of having children. Like, it is
Oh, yeah.
like solidly like terrifying to me. And so we kind of just wanted to speak about why we're terrified. Because I think they're valid feelings. They might not be like, some of them might be quote unquote stupid, but they're still my feelings. So
Yeah.
I think the reason we want to talk about it is also, I think a lot of people probably feel this way and just are scared to say anything. Like, you just don't say those things, and we just like to say all the things.
All the things, all the time.
Yes. So I actually didn't put mine in a specific order. I'm just going to be all over
Yeah.
the place talking about my
Okay.
reasons, if that's okay.
Okay.
Secondly, I had so many fancy notes that I left at home. So
So
this will just
sad.
be my big brain talking about these things.
Yes. Well, luckily you have like the biggest brain in the world, so
Yes.
it'll be so good. Okay.
Do you want to start us
well,
off?
Okay. So, I titled my notes "Kids Are Scary." But
They are.
anyway, so I'm just gonna talk about. I mean, I feel like my reasons are quite broad, and might not necessarily be like why I'm scared, just like maybe why I'm hesitant as well.
Yeah. I mean, because realistically, you probably will have kids, but it
Yeah,
doesn't mean that
yeah.
it doesn't come with fears.
Yeah. So I do want to say that like there was a stage when I was younger where I was genuinely like, oh, I actually don't think I'll have kids. But now that I've like gotten a bit older, not that I want to have kids anytime soon, but I'm like, I actually don't like. I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world. But
I thought we
we'll
were
see
going
how
to
it
announce your
goes.
pregnancy in this episode.
Oh, surprise!
Your miraculous
My
conception.
mirror. Oh my gosh. No. Okay. So the first reason why I'm scared to have kids is pregnancy. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
now, like, I do want to preface that obviously getting pregnant and having birth, giving birth and having a kid that way is not the only way to have a child.
Yes.
Um, but like, I think I would be I would want to have a biological child maybe. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason why I am scared of pregnancy is because for a lot of women it is like a completely life changing and like body changing experience. Like the thing is your body
Mm-hmm.
literally never goes back to the way it was. Like even if you
Yes.
have like the most natural labor and like you don't tear and all that, like your body is still different. Like it
Yeah.
will never go back to the way it was, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that's something to come to terms with. Like if you've
With.
grown up a certain way, if you've grown up with a certain body, um,
Mm-hmm.
I think it can be a difficult thing. And like just some things that I think about is like a lot of women experience hair loss. Some women literally lose their teeth during pregnancy, which is horrifying to me. Yeah. And like for a lot of women it like wrecks your bladder, which is also scary
Fun.
to me. And there's obviously even worse things. I
Yes.
think like if you want to have kids, it is sort of just a sacrifice. But
Mm.
yeah, that honestly is like as superficial as it sounds. It is something I think about. Like I feel like even as a woman growing up, like it is a lot of girls have sort of messed up ideas about their bodies, and like
Yeah.
it's a lot to come to terms with like how you look and all that. And then when you get
Yeah.
pregnant, then like it all changes again. And
Yep.
on the plus side, I do know of a lot of women who say like they grew up maybe with body issues, but then after being pregnant, they sort of didn't really care so
Those
much
fell
anymore. So
away.
that's a good
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. But yeah, that's my first reason.
Okay, so I'll just jump off that and I'll mention pregnancy first because I also wrote that
Yeah.
down. And I think for me, it's like some people have the most amazing pregnancies, and then I hear like
Mm-hmm.
horror stories. And
Horror
even just
stories.
looking, I think a lot of like what I'm going to say today comes from the fact that my brother was born when I was 16. So, like, I had an up close view of like parenting and stuff. And
Yeah.
when my mom was pregnant with my brother, she had morning sickness until 22 weeks. And I'm like,
Oof.
imagine throwing up and feeling sick
No, thank
every
you.
single day, all day for 22 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's terrifying for me. And it's also like, it does, it changes your body. And
Mm.
it's just a terrifying thing, but it is also the most beautiful thing. And I'm not taking away from that because it is
Absolutely.
like a miracle. And just on the body image thing, because I actually spoke to a couple of moms in preparing for this episode, so it wasn't just a kids are horrible downer episode. But I
Yeah.
spoke to our friend Courtney, and
Mm.
she was saying like I think she used the word pudgy. She said she's the pudgiest she's ever been in her life, and she said
Mm.
like she's not even phased. She said the fact that her body like grew a human.
Yeah.
She's like, I've never been so in awe of my body before.
It's amazing.
Um, and so, yeah, I think it can be. But then also, like, I follow like dancers and I look at Lindsay Arnold
Mm.
and Whitney, and I'm like, your body literally looks like
Yeah.
perfect. And you had a
I suppose
baby
like
4 months ago.
when your whole job is being active, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes. And I
um,
wouldn't be that. So it is scary.
yeah.
Yeah. The idea of pregnancy and how uncomfortable it sounds is
Mm.
scary. It's
Yeah.
like your
And
body's
like
also not your own anymore.
that's exactly it. And like it isn't your own for basically years and years after giving birth. Like it's not like you're pregnant, you give birth, and then like, oh, you have your freedom again. Like, no, 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 no.
Yes.
Like if you're
Yeah.
breastfeeding, then you have that to go through for like a year or two or however many
Yes.
years you breastfeed, and all that. But yeah, also just like on the whole weight gain and all that, like I really do just want to say that there's no pressure, like there shouldn't be any pressure to bounce back after a pregnancy.
No.
Like like you've literally
Like you
just
said, for
birthed a
people who
human
it's their
being.
job to stay active, it's a different story. But
It's a
most
different
people, that
story.
isn't their job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I move on
Yes.
to my next one?
Your next
Okay,
one.
so this goes hand in hand with pregnancy, but
Is
another
it
reason why I'm is
is it
birth.
both? Okay.
And like I do also just want to say again, I think like birth is the most incredible thing, and I love watching people's birth vlogs, like not like watching them give birth, just like their
The
experience and all that.
experience.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it is fascinating. Like every birth is different. I've seen women who have like the most incredible hospital births with epidural. I've seen women who have the most incredible at-home births, like just in the water
Yes.
doing their thing, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Um, but like birth is also scary, and I think it. I mean, I could talk forever about the subject, like forever, because on one hand, like it is a very natural thing for women to go through, but also like it is very painful, and you could literally die. So
Yeah, I think
I
that
think it's
people
very
like
scary.
you generally don't hear many stories like that. But like the reality is, for so many years before medicine is what it is today,
Yeah.
it was quite common to die in childbirth or to
Mm-hmm.
have babies that were born still or were breached and
Yeah.
like, you know. So
Exactly.
yeah, I think that like I actually saw a post about how like social media has made birth seem scarier than it is, and like women should
Yeah.
embrace it. And
Mm.
I get what they're saying, but at the same time, like personally I'm terrified because like I feel
Mm.
like I'm not the smallest human, but I'm a fairly teeny tiny human. So
Yeah.
the fact that like I would have to birth a tiny human is still quite scary.
Mm.
And yeah, it's like it is a painful, painful thing. Like they say you
Yeah.
forget, but like that doesn't take away from the fact that it's super painful in the moment. And if
Yeah.
like my period pain is anything to go off of, I'm like, I'll die. So
Yeah.
yeah, birth is scary, and also they say it's super important to have a birth plan, but like
It hardly goes to
most of the
plan.
time it never goes to plan. And yeah, it's just like deciding what is going to be best for you can be so scary, you know.
Okay.
Cool.
Do you want to go?
You can go. I think
Okay.
we all have the same
We'll probably
answers,
be
but
the
it's
same.
fine. Yeah.
Okay. My next one is so basically having your child either like be a stillbirth or getting a childhood disease or like dying as a child. That's one of I don't think I would actually ever move on from that, to be honest. Like knowing me, I don't know if I would ever be able to move on. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people have gone through that, and like I'm so sorry. But that
Yeah.
is genuinely like when I think about it, knowing how paranoid I am about like other
Health.
people, yeah, and like health and like other people in my life, I'm like I actually don't know like what I would do.
Yeah.
And the idea of like being like constantly paranoid about like my own child's life is not like the most exciting prospect to me. So that is also something that puts me off having children, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
For sure. Okay, so then my next one is just the fact that it changes your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's probably a sense of like, my life is not my own anymore kind of thing. And
Exactly.
with that comes something that might sound so controversial. And I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say this like before, but there's something weird for me. And like, I'm scared to say this because I don't want to be judged. But
Just say
like,
it.
I think with having kids, there's like this now you have to share your spouse.
Mm.
And I know that sounds so like dodge,
Yeah.
but
I don't think so.
like, but it's like, I think, especially as Christians, like when you get married, it's like, you're kind of like, okay, I finally have this person always around, you know. And
Mm.
it's like scary for me how much like having children can change a marriage. And
Yeah.
like I see so many people's like marriages fall apart because their children become their everything. And
Mm.
like, I don't know, it's scary to me. But I was
I also
speaking
think so.
to I was speaking to Ali, who is my like a mentor to me, and she was saying how it's amazing how when you get to that season, like God just gives you the grace that you need, and it's not like anything else. It's not like looking after someone else's kids. And like both her and like Emma, a friend of ours who's pregnant, she was saying like
Yeah.
she obviously loves Justin to bits. She's like, but she cannot wait to see him be a dad. And like Ali was saying, how you
Yeah.
see things in your spouse that you didn't know was there, and it just makes you love them more. And so, like, that's
Yeah.
exciting. But it's also like, I'm like, what if I just want to like sit on the couch and talk to my spouse for an hour, but they're like little kids saying,
I
Daddy, come
know.
play. So
I
as
know.
dumb as it might sound, like, I'm like scared of that.
Yeah, I think that's honestly quite a valid fear. And yeah, just to piggyback off of your point, I basically said the same thing. Like, your life is no longer about you, and your time is not your own. Especially if you're a mother. Like, I mean, listen, I think a lot of dads are stepping up a lot more now, especially in like the more recent generations, and spending more time with their kids, which is amazing. But at the
I
end of
think
the
that's
day,
actually
I
more in the
think,
Western, like, our
yeah, yeah, well,
context.
that is what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Like, just in my experience and like the people I've seen.
Yeah.
But I do think it is for a lot of in most families. I think it's still the mother who is more the primary caregiver. Just because I mean, like we've spoken about it before, like you're the one who like carries the child, who gives birth, who essentially looks after the child in the very early stages of life. But
Yes.
like honestly, I mean, I've looked after like Courtney's baby, Laura Riley,
Riley, she's a
quite a few
cutie.
times. She's such a cutie. I think she is the cutest child. But like when you are like looking after a child, you can't actually do anything by yourself. I'm like, I don't know how anyone does this, and it like really reaffirmed to me that I do not want this anytime
Yes.
like soon in my life. Like it really
Yeah.
reaffirmed it to me.
Yeah.
Like not in a rude way. Like she's like an absolute joy to look after. But like I can't just go and decide I can't just decide, oh, I'm going to go and make my own lunch and spend time by myself. Like I can't do that, you know? And like if you're a
Like,
mother, then I
moms
think it's
always
even more.
joke, like, I just want to go to the bathroom by myself.
Yeah.
You can't
And that's
even
like
do that
that's a pretty
sometimes.
scary prospect to me because this is another
Yes.
thing. I need alone time. Like I need it.
Me
And I'm so
too.
scared
Me
that
too,
like if
dude.
I have a kid that I will just be having nervous breakdowns the entire time because I'm like I
Yes.
can't
Leave
be
me
alone.
alone.
And like I also like I don't like people touching me all the time and kids like to touch people.
Then my next one, which is a common one, is just that like it or not, kids are flippin' expensive.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I think people maybe blow this up to an extent. But it's like, it's not just like nappies are expensive, it's like university's expensive. It's like a
Yeah.
lifelong financial
It's a lifelong
commitment.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, yeah, it can just be like quite a burden. And like, I think I'm the type of person where like I want to give my kids as much as I can, you know? Like
Yeah.
they don't need to have the best of everything, but I'd like them to
Yeah.
have, you know, or like give them the best that I possibly can. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's a little bit scary when you're not in a financial position to do that. And as dumb as it sounds, like it's actually not that dumb, but like I don't ever want to struggle financially, and I wouldn't ever want to put that burden on a child.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it can be scary, and like then I can't go on holidays by myself, and that's rude.
So rude. Yeah. No, I also think so. I mean, I think that is probably one of the biggest factors in people choosing not to have kids these days. It's just it's so expensive, and you know what? The cost of living is only getting more and more expensive,
Yeah.
which is pretty scary.
And I don't think it's a
Um,
reason not to have kids, like at
yeah,
all, unless you're like
yeah,
living in like complete poverty, because I
yeah.
think that your lifestyle just adjusts, but
Oh, it
still,
does.
it's flipping
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah. But I feel you. The next scary thing about having a kid is that you have to teach them to be good people, and to be a good adult and all that. And I think, I mean, I think most people like have pretty ambitious desires about what their kids are going to do and like they're going to raise them in such a way, but like a lot of
You
people are
don't
not
know.
that yeah, a lot of people are not that good, and it's kind of difficult to raise
There are serial killers that came from normal homes too.
yeah, that is literally terrifying to me. Like, what if I put in all this effort into raising like amazing kids and then they end up being very
A
scary
psychopath.
people? Like, oh, it's so scary. Like, and like, it's no one's fault. Like, I really never want to put the blame on any parents for like the actions
No.
of your kids, although a lot of
Except
things,
Putin. I mean, if
if his mother,
someone, if his mother did better, if you know, you know.
oh, if you know, you know. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things that happen in your childhood like do affect you as an adult. But a lot of sometimes it's literally got nothing to do with you, and that is pretty scary to me. And also just raising a person to be like a functional adult and a good person.
Human.
Oh, it's a very scary
Yes.
thought, you know?
Yes. Okay, then my next one is my hormones, but specifically because of the fact that I have bipolar. And so if I had to have biological kids, like I'd have to come off my medication. So not
Yeah.
only would I be dealing with normal pregnancy hormones and what comes after that, but I would like not be on the medication that I've been on for years. And it's a sacrifice, but it's just like incredibly scary. Like, am I going to have a complete nervous breakdown
Yeah.
if I have to experience pregnancy and motherhood? So like that is genuinely terrifying. And that also like comes with a lot of planning. And like people fall pregnant by accident all the time. So it's
Yeah.
like the fact that I have to like go into marriage, and if I choose to have biological kids, it has to come with like a serious game plan of like I need to get myself off my meds at this time and do these things at this time. Like it's very scary for me.
It is. It absolutely is. Have you ever like spoken to anyone who has bipolar who has also had biological kids? Like, have you ever had those conversations with someone?
I actually haven't. I've met people who've had depression and stuff, and there are like antidepressants and stuff that you can stay on during pregnancy and during breastfeeding. And there are certain medications where they kind of mimic your meds, but you can be on them, but they're not the same at all. And like most people will know that psychiatric drugs are like finding the right medication for one person looks completely different for the next. And so
Yeah.
it is scary. But if you're
Yeah. Like as a
bipolar or
whole,
have, yeah,
like carry
if you
on.
have
Yeah.
bipolar, and you had a baby, let me know how it went.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like it literally adds like a whole other layer to like already getting pregnant, and ugh, yeah, it's a whole other thing to
Yeah.
think about. Okay. My next reason is a selfish one, but I am scared that I would have kids and then they grow up to resent me. Like that is a horrifying thought to me.
Dude.
Like, and you see it a
Yep.
lot, like I I think most parents will try their best to give their kids the best life and like do what's best for them. But sometimes things don't go to plan, and sometimes your kids end up resenting you, and like I think it's incredibly
Yep.
sad, and it does just happen. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think like having like I've seen families, just for example, like people who used to live next to us, like they're quite old, but their kids, like they have the most dysfunctional
Oh,
relationship
I
with
do
their
know this
kids I've
story.
ever seen in my life. And like, I mean, to be fair, like they're not exactly easy people, but I'm like, it's actually so sad that they don't talk, they don't visit. There's like a lot of just so much drama surrounding that, and I just really don't want that in my life. I mean, obviously nobody wants that, but it is a
Yeah.
horrifying thought to me, especially growing up in a close family. Like, yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Mm.
Okay. Then my next one is a little bit similar to what we've spoken about, but just the fact that I'm not selfless enough.
Yes, I
Um,
feel the same way.
because I'm like, I try to be selfless, but I'm like so incredibly human. And like, I would need some serious, like, selflessness gifted to me by the Lord,
Yeah.
because
I
like
think you would get that.
I want to nap when I want to nap. Like if I
Mm,
want to go out with friends, like I want to be able to do that. And the fact that your child completely takes over your whole life, takes over your schedule, when you do things, how you
exactly.
do things, and it's like you literally give everything for them. You make so many sacrifices
Mm-hmm.
for them, and I'm like, what if I'm not selfless enough?
Yeah.
But I actually spoke to a lady in my church, Christine, and she has 4 kids. And
Wow.
I said to her, like, how are you so selfless? And like, she's like, they've gone through so much as a family, and like, their kids have come with so much sacrifice for them as a family, and they'll tell you that. And she said that it is the most amazing thing when you take a step back and you realize that God loves your kids more than you ever will, and
Mm,
you are simply stewards. And I've
yeah.
never heard parenthood being likened to stewardship before. And I was like, oh
I
my
love
word,
that actually.
that is actually so true.
Mm,
Like God gives you these gifts and you do your best, but at the end of the day, he loves them infinitely more than you ever will. And like
mm-hmm.
he will look after your kids, you know? And
Yeah.
so, and she's like, he just gives you this grace where you don't even think about sacrifices. You just do it because you
Mm,
have it in you. Like you just love them so much that you don't stop and think, oh, this is such a sacrifice. So that was
yeah.
comforting.
Yeah. I think like on a similar vein, like one thing I'm scared of is like what if I have this child and I don't like naturally love them as much as like you think you're going to, or like you don't have that
Yeah.
connection, because you do
Yeah.
like I've heard quite a lot of
I've known
stories where
people.
people, yeah, they're like, I did not feel that connection, I did not feel that immediate love, which
Yeah.
is, yeah, which is scary to me. Like I never want to have a kid and then think later, oh, I really regret having that child, because I've also heard people saying that, and that is terrifying to me, because I mean, like I would rather like not have kids and then regret not having kids than have a kid and regret
And
having that
regret.
child, you
Yeah.
know? Which maybe
It's very,
sounds like a selfish thing, but it's also like it's a human
no.
life. And I feel like
Yeah.
I would never want to regret bringing a human into the world.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that is something I think often about actually.
Yes. Okay, whose turn is it? Me.
Um, well,
Well,
I'll go,
I'll
or
just
you want to
speak
go?
because
Okay,
I
you
have
go.
the same thing. So
Yeah.
I also wrote that I'm scared I'm going to regret parenthood, and I've spoken to people who said that they love their kids with everything, but if given a
Mm,
do-over, they wouldn't have those kids, and it's such a difficult thing to
sure.
explain because it's like it sounds like you hate your kids and you don't. You love them with everything, but when you look back, it's like,
Mm,
was that really the right decision? And I don't ever want to
yeah.
feel like that. So
No,
I
me
get you.
neither. Okay, another thing is just bringing children into a world that feels like it's crumbling, just socially, politically, economically, environmentally. Like it really does feel like everything is getting worse.
Yeah.
And I think every generation has always felt like that. I mean, like I'm sure people who brought their kid, like who gave birth, maybe like during World War I or World War II, or like during slavery or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it felt like, oh, what world are we bringing this child into?
Yeah.
But it is like, what kind of future are they going to have? Like when you see, like just for example, like when I think about different species going extinct, whatever, like, or like, what if my kid is never going to see a rhinoceros? Which is not that deep, but it's also like, it's scary to think
Bizarre.
about.
It's a straight.
Yeah,
It's
it's
that's a
scary to think about
hectic
it.
thought. For
Yeah, and
sure.
like
For sure.
if you just apply that to anything else, it's not great. And even if you think about just like technologically, the kind of world that kids are being raised up in, like kids are given like iPads from the time they can like do anything,
Oh,
and that is like scary to me. And like literally no shade to anyone who does that. Like you've got to do what you've got to do to entertain your kids sometimes, but
yeah.
it's also like, to be honest, it's not great for their
No.
development or for their brains.
Yeah. And like I
And
wouldn't want to do that, but like then
you
kids
never
come home
know.
and it's like, but all my friends have tablets.
Exactly,
And it's like, now I
exactly.
hate you, parent. Why can't I have one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, then this is probably like hands down my biggest fear is my kids not loving Jesus.
Yeah.
Because like I'm the type of person where my kids will come to church with me and they won't have a choice because they are my children, but I'm never going to force my religion on them. So they need to get to a
Yeah.
place where they need to choose Jesus for themselves. And like the thought that I like they won't choose him is terrifying to
Yeah.
me. But I was speaking to a lady in my church as well, and she said you kind of, I mean, obviously it's not a reason not to have kids, and you just need to like walk the talk, like love them
Exactly.
like Jesus does, because
Mm-hmm.
that is just like that's all you can do, and hopefully they'll see that in you, and want the same thing, or like see like how good God is. But ultimately, like you can't decide, and it's important that you give them the space to explore. But I'm still
Yeah.
scared that like I can do everything right and give them that space, and like they still won't choose him. Like that's like devastating to me, and I'm terrified. So
Yeah. That is scary.
yes,
And I think also like being a pastor, there's also a lot of pressure on like the
that's my
children
next
of
one.
a pastor to act in a certain way. Yes, which yeah, it definitely compounds that. And yeah, I think I mean just when you're choosing to raise your child in a certain religion or to like believe a certain thing, um, like you actually don't have a control over that. And I think what you're saying is so important is like walking the talk, because when you speak to a lot of people who maybe were raised Christian and then turned away, it's because they see the hypocrisies. They see like their mom and dad saying, do this and do this, but then they're seeing them do something else,
Yeah,
and like
for
acting in a way
sure,
that they don't want to act. And
for sure.
like when you're seeing like the ugly side of people, or people who like go to church but don't actually believe like
Yeah,
what is being preached, like the kids are going to be like, cool, well,
this
this
is
means
not for
nothing to
me.
me. This is not a way I want
Thanks.
to live. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is like that is also something I think about, like, because you always think like, oh, I'm gonna do things in this way so my kids don't end up like this, but you have actually no control over someone.
Yep.
Like, and I think this is like one of the most important things when you have kids. You have to realize that they're not your possession. Like you said, you are stewards over them, but like they are their own person. They are probably gonna disagree with you on a lot of things, and you need
Yes.
to be able to have those conversations with them.
Yeah,
But
for
did you just
sure.
want to talk about the whole pastor thing? Because
Yes.
I do
So
want to
that's
hear
another
that.
fear is like if I'm in ministry, like there is so much pressure on pastors'
Mm-hmm.
kids to be involved in everything, to be perfect
Yeah.
kids, to be this shining example. And the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that pastors' kids are the same as every other kid.
Literally, they're not more holy.
Do expectations on pastors'
Mm-hmm.
kids, and I don't think it's fair. If you're not expecting something of unexpected of another child just because they're a pastor's child, and it's like
Absolutely.
I even
Mm-hmm.
the people in a congregation. And so it's like I'm just terrified that like my child will have to go through being put under like a ridiculous amount of pressure
Yeah.
that they were never meant to be put under. So
Absolutely.
to my future congregations, stay away from my kids or
Yeah.
else.
Okay, I'm coming to like the end of my list. But one of my fears, and this is also like, I don't know, but like, what if I die, or like, what if they become orphans or
Oh,
something like that?
yeah.
Like it really sucks to think about like your future kids, like maybe having to be without a mother or a father, like having to deal with death or anything like that.
Yeah, for
And that
sure.
scares me for them. Like it doesn't scare me for me, but for them
Yeah,
more
you'll
than
be
anything. Yeah.
you'll be doing fine.
Yeah,
But
I'll
they
be
will be the
fine.
ones that like suffer the
Yeah,
the repercussions
exactly.
of loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I have a couple more, but you might want to bounce off them.
Yeah. I have
Um,
like
s-
one or two more, I
okay.
think. Yeah.
So this is going back to like postpartum
Mm-hmm.
breastfeeding.
Okay.
Terrified. Terrified
Yeah.
because a lot for the longest time growing up, I'm just like, breastfeeding is something that every woman does, and it's easy because like you just have these
It's
natural
natural.
instincts. And you and I both know that's not the case. We've seen and heard horror
Yeah.
stories and like
Mm-hmm.
babies that don't latch or you don't do it properly. And so like I just praise the Lord for like lactose consultants. But at the same
Yeah.
time, like it's not comfortable for a good while. Like if you just think about
Mm-mm.
it as a woman, you just think about it and you haven't breastfed before, and just imagine like someone just like sucking on your boob, and I'm like, oh, that sounds annoyingly painful. Um, and like
Yeah.
some kids are born with teeth. I'm like, heck no.
Terrifying. Yeah.
So, and like mastitis seems like the most painful thing. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, it's a no for me, dog. Like but I like, if I have kids,
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
want to
yeah.
breastfeed.
You'd want to
Like,
try.
yeah, because like I think it's like a connection thing, but also like so much cheaper.
So much cheaper, less like
Yeah,
less waste as well.
yeah,
Yeah, it is
exactly.
like the most sustainable way to feed your baby if you can.
Yes, but yeah,
um,
it does scare me, and I'm like, what if I hate it, or what if I'm not able to? Like that's
yeah,
sad
yeah.
and
I
terrifies me.
think I was like I have been quite lucky in the sense that I've grown up in a family that has focused a lot on breastfeeding. Like I grew up with
Yes.
like seeing my mom breastfeed, seeing my aunts breastfeed. My grandmother's a lactation consultant. So
Did I say lactose
yes, you
consultant?
did. Which is a bit
Lactose,
funny
it's
to
still
me.
milk.
Yes. So I have like always just grown up knowing that like that is something that I would want to do and something that I would try my absolute best to do. Obviously, like a lot of women have tried and tried and tried and it just didn't work out. And
Yeah.
yeah, like you're not a
And that's
failure for doing that.
okay.
You're not a
Yeah.
failure at all.
But
Like you
it's
got to
still
feed your
like
baby.
scary.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and like
Exactly.
it also just goes back to you having a plan in your like in your mind about how you want
Mm-hmm.
like your birth or like you want to breastfeed your baby and then it doesn't go to plan and I think it can be devastating.
Yeah.
Um,
For sure.
and it's okay to feel that way, but yeah, it is scary to think about. Okay, my last one is just having to make decisions for a whole person. So it's like from the small things even like what to name them, like if
Naming a
you see some
child.
you see some things that people like name their kids, and I'm like, you do realize that they're going to grow up to be like a person, like an adult. They're not a little accessory or doll, right? Because I'm like, do you know how ruthless people are when it comes to names?
Iconic. Like,
Like,
you can't name your child iconic,
no,
but
you
people
can't.
have. Legend.
And it's crazy. And then also like knowing, for example, like where to send them to school or like if you want to homeschool, like it's all those decisions and like they do
Yeah.
ultimately like mold your kid into who they're going to be. And I think it's like pretty scary to be like making choices that are going to affect someone for probably most of their life. Yeah, terrifying.
Yeah.
How must I know?
Like piggybacking off that, I also wrote like the fact that childhood is the most formative period in someone's life. There are things that can
Exactly.
happen to you at 2 years old that are is going to affect you at age 50. It's just like all research points to how formative those years are. And the fact that you are
Yeah,
the primary person in that like child's life, like you are shaping them, and it's going to affect them for the rest of their life. And like if you screw up, like by God's grace, He will like change trajectories and help your child get over childhood trauma and stuff. But like I think you could be well-meaning and still mess your kid up. And I think you said
yeah.
that earlier on. And it's just the fact that childhood is so formative, and you are the person that's going to influence your young child more so than anyone else. Like the idea of a child like, you know, struggling with issues like well
I
into
know.
adulthood that I caused.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
I think also like
Yeah.
you also have to we also have to consider like a lot of parents also like have not healed from their own traumas in their
Yep.
life and then they essentially project that onto their kids as well. So it's
Like
like this generational
generational
trauma.
thing. It is a real thing. It's like a even like a biblical and spiritual thing, you know?
It
It's
is,
like
yeah.
it is like terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, there's
you know?
studies done on like kids or like whatever who are descendants of people who survived the Holocaust or whatever, and they
Oh,
have this generational trauma that like
wow.
it's yeah, like they didn't even necessarily go through it, but they experienced the side effects for generations to come.
Yeah.
Um, so
Things
it's quite a
like
thing.
divorce and alcoholism are also, you see, like
Yeah.
such a generational thing. And it's just crazy how, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm done with my reasons, so you can
Okay, I'll
run through the
quickly
rest of
just
yours.
finish
Yeah.
these. So, the one thing is that I won't have motherly instincts because some people say that
Yep.
you just don't have them. I'm like, people are like, you'll just know your like natural like instincts will like kick in. And
Where?
I was speaking to Ali, um, and she was like, people told me, and then I was like, okay, but where are they? This baby's crying. They are
Yeah.
fed, they are changed. Like, there's no reason for
Sometimes
this
they
child
just
to
want
be
to be
crying.
held. Yeah.
I'm holding them and they're still crying, you know? And it's like, where are the
Yeah.
instincts? Why aren't
Yeah.
they kicking in? So that safety, oh my gosh,
Yeah. Oh, I can't.
like keeping them safe. And like, I spoke to your mom about this, and she said, like, safety is not a reason not to have a child, but she said, like, it is terrifying, and she's lost her kids in shopping centers before. And she said
Yeah.
that there's no worse feeling, and like, you can only protect them for so long. And like, dude, I think of like human trafficking and stuff like this, and I
I
want to
cannot.
die.
I
And
would.
on
Yeah.
like protecting my child online, like online is like a terrifying other world where they can get lost and
Yeah.
kidnapped, and
It's scary for me. I can't even imagine like being a young child on the internet,
yeah.
you know?
And
Like
it's like,
I
how
wasn't
do you
allowed on the
control a
internet for a
child's
while.
internet use, you know? Because
Exactly.
it's become something that's like pivotal, and like you get to school and like projects are now designed where you use the
You have to
internet
have
and
the
stuff, so
internet.
you have to
Yeah.
have the internet, but like, how do you protect a child without completely hiding them away? Because sometimes I'm like, I'll
Exactly.
just hide my child in a room for their whole
Yeah.
life, which you can't do.
Okay, Gothel
So
from Rapunzel.
safety, that movie. But then, like, also your mom was saying, like, when your child gets older, you do have things like Google location, and it's a lot easier to find children now than like back in the day if a child went missing. But like,
Yeah.
no, Madeline McCann did.
I would never
Um,
recover.
so yeah, but that kind of wraps up the episode. I
Yeah.
don't think having kids is, I think that there are many fears, and I think a lot of people have these fears, and I don't think that a lot of them are reasons not to have children at all. But
Yeah.
I think, like, just a comfort for anyone who's like, I don't want to have kids, does that make me a crazy person? I don't think it
No.
does. I think it makes you
I
pretty
think,
human.
yeah.
And
I've
just
heard a
because
lot of
you're a
people,
woman doesn't
yeah.
mean that you have to have children. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay if you don't.
Please. I've heard a lot of people like almost get angry with women who don't want to have kids. And it's like, oh, you're being
Bizarre.
selfish. Or like, what about the woman who can't have children and now you're actively deciding not to have a kid? And it's like bizarre. Like, it's not about you.
Yeah.
Um, and I think if you don't have kids, please don't have a child in case you regret not having kids. Like,
Awful.
truly believe like if you have the choice, if you have any sort of control over it, like don't make those decisions based on how you think you might feel in the future. Like
Yeah.
it's a lifelong thing, and I really do want to emphasize that. But like there are like a few things that like make me excited to have kids. I don't know if you like wrote anything down, but
No, but I'll think of a couple of things off the top of my head
yeah,
quickly.
I'll just like run through some of mine like very very quickly, just because I don't want to go have this episode too long. But anyway, you know us.
Yes.
The first one is just raising a more loving and ethical generation. Yeah, that is something. I mean, it's a lot of pressure on the kid, of course, but like it makes me excited to think of like if we all decide that we want to like raise our kids to be like more caring, then like just imagine what could happen.
Yeah.
Another one is just having like half of me and then half of the person I love in like one
Oh,
person. It's so exciting.
it is the coolest thing.
Yeah. Another one is just creating a loving home. Like I would really want to have that kind of home where like my kid can bring their friends over and it can just be a fun little time. I hope they have friends.
I have the most fun at the Murray house. See y'all on New
Yes.
Year.
Whoop, whoop. So yeah, that is like a really exciting prospect to me. Another one is just doing things with my kids. I never want to be like one of those parents where you have kids and then the fun stops. Like for example, if you and your spouse like to go hike or you like to go and do whatever, like I never want to be that person where like, oh, it stops and we stay at home and we never go out. Like I want
Yeah,
to bring my kids and like we can go do fun stuff together.
I know.
Um,
My kids are going to be so bored. I love staying home.
no, oh, me too. I'm such a homebody, but I also like
No, for
like
sure.
you will have like you find things that you like doing
Enjoy.
eventually.
Yeah, for sure.
And then another one is just like raising your kids not only with your partner but also with like the people you love. So like I'm a firm believer in like it does take a village in
A
a sense. So like
village.
yeah, so like having like their grandparents or like their aunts and uncles or like just having like my friends around them as
There's
well. Because
Zara.
like yeah,
Your
exactly.
kids are
'Cause
going to love me.
they will. Like you are like a product of the people you spend time with, and I think it's exciting. Like if
100%.
they're spending time with the people you love. And then another one is just like very superficial, very basic. Is that kids can be so cute. I just love watching them like
Dressing them up as well. Yup.
dressing them and like I've always said like I find the baby stage, like the newborn like baby stage of a baby, like it's pretty boring to be honest. I'm like, cool, you literally do nothing. I'm sure
It's my
like when I have
favorite
my
part.
own. No. When I have my own I'll be like,
I
oh,
love
so cute.
newborns.
But like when I see children, like little babies, not little
Yeah,
babies,
I
like
send you
let's
stuff
say,
of like
yeah,
Sage, Lindsay Arnold's daughter, all the
yeah.
time.
And like I just love watching them learn and like watching how their little minds work and like when they were learning new words and I'm like, it's just amazing to watch. And I would,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's so cool. Yeah,
I
those are
think
my
having
reasons.
children, I think having children is like the biggest miracle. Like how? Like people like
Well, I can
see
tell you
like
how, Zara.
maths. People see maths and they're like, "Oh my goodness, God is like real." And I'm like,
I don't care
human
about maths.
being born, God is real.
I'll tell you how it
But
happens.
yeah, thank you. Tell me after though,
Okay,
in case I
well,
have lots of questions.
yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reasons that you said, but then also like I was speaking to someone this week and they're like, my kids make me laugh more than anyone.
Yeah.
Like they're a
Yeah.
constant form of entertainment and it is literally the best. Like my 7-year-old will walk in and say the most like hilarious thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, we just laugh so much that it's just such a
I
nice
love
environment
that.
to be in, which is cool. And then also like just as a disciple of Jesus, the idea that like by God's grace I could raise someone who is going to impact the kingdom far more than I ever could.
Yeah.
Like, or just one short story we can cut out if we don't have time, is I met someone a couple of months ago and then they study at Stellenbosch and then they came back now for holiday and we were chatting and I was like, what are the chances you know Autumn Neertling? And he was like, Autumn, the worship leader. And I was like, yeah,
Aw,
probably. And he was just going on about like how amazing she is. And I was like, I'm the
that's
one
so
that led her to
special.
faith. Like God chose
Yeah.
me to be the one to lead her to faith and to baptize her. And now like she is just, I feel like she's just done exceedingly more than like I have. And like
Yeah.
she's just impacting people for the kingdom. And I'm like,
Yeah. I love Autumn. She's such a
I love
cutie.
Autumn too. Shout
And
out to her.
beautiful
She doesn't listen
voice.
to this podcast enough.
Well, she has to
It's
listen to this one
pathetic.
for a special
She
surprise.
does. She does. Yes. So that was cool.
Cool.
And then he knew another
Yeah.
guy that Sean like mentored and like
Oh, that's
taught to play guitar. And
amazing.
I'm like, the generations.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
beautiful.
it is exciting. And I will end this episode with what almost every single mother I spoke to said. And they were like, kids are a gift from the Lord and are the most wonderful, wonderful things. And I'm like, if you have kids like Danielle and I, that would make sense. So
So much
thank you.
sense. Yeah.
The end.
The
Guys, we will see you in
end.
the next episode.
Uh-huh.
And that's all I have to say. We love you
Awesome.
and we're glad that you were all born. Otherwise, we wouldn't have
Yes.
listeners.
Yes. Thank you so much for doing that for us. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.